Across the old roads of the United States, deep in forests, beyond rusted gates, and down forgotten colonial paths, stand mansions older than memory. Their walls hold the breath of centuries, their foundations rest on graves of untold stories, and their windows watch the world like eyes that never blink. Cobblestone steps lead to doors that should never be opened. Weathered paint peels like dead skin. Hallways whisper with footsteps of those long buried. Some say these colonial mansions are only remnants of history. Others say they are traps for the living. Inside these cursed halls, visitors hear voices that do not belong to our world. Cold hands tug at their clothing. Staircases creak beneath invisible weight. Portraits seem to follow with painted eyes that feel too real. Tonight, we open those doors. We step inside. We listen to the past breathe. If you felt fingers brush your arm in the dark, would you pull a wire or freeze and see what stands behind you? Take a slow breath. Our journey into the most haunted colonial-era mansions in the United States begins. My dear friend, I hope your heart is steady and the night around you is calm, because what we are about to explore is not meant for every soul. Colonial America left behind grand homes, manors, and sprawling estates built by wealth, power, and secrets. But those secrets never died. They clung to the walls, soaked into the foundations, and became part of the land itself. Some of these mansions once echoed with music and candlelight. Now they echo with footsteps in empty corridors. Some once held families, celebrations, and warm hearths. Now they hold shadows, unfinished stories, and restless spirits. Visitors report whispers drifting through rooms where no living voice speaks. Doors open to hallways that should not exist. Attics groan with heavy footsteps pacing back and forth. Basements exhale cold air like a living creature waiting below. So before we walk deeper, tell me something, my friend. If you stood before a colonial mansion and saw a pale figure watching you from the highest window, would you step inside, or would you turn away and never look back? Take a breath. Steady your thoughts. We are going in. Hawthorne Hall stands on the outskirts of a quiet Massachusetts town, where the forest leans in close and the road narrows into shadow. Built in the early 1700s, it rests beside a crooked line of ancient oak trees whose branches claw at the windows like skeletal hands. Locals claim the house shifts at night. The timbers groan. The floors buckle. The timbers groan. The floors buckle. It sounds like the building exhales after holding something in for too long. A sigh that rolls through every empty hallway. Visitors who step inside describe a hush that settles over them like dust. It clings to the air. Heavy. Waiting. The wood smells of age and cold rain. The corners feel too dark to enter. And always, no matter the season, a faint draft drifts through the ballroom as if someone has opened a door that no one can see. Hawthorne Hall was once a place meant for celebration. Records speak of grand gatherings, lanterns glowing in tall windows, and musicians who traveled miles just to perform under the chandeliers. Today those chandeliers still hang, but they are covered in dust and spiderwebs. Their crystals sway in a wind that is never felt. The ballroom floor creaks though no footsteps echo there. People swear they hear distant crying from somewhere near the back of the room. A soft voice, muffled by decades. They say the bride-to-be died the night before her wedding. Some blame a tragic fall down the staircase. Others whisper she vanished during a storm, never found in the riverbanks or the woods. But the most unsettling belief is that she never left the house at all. Her presence lingers, moving like a memory too strong to fade. Those who have visited at dusk tell of footsteps gliding across the splintered boards. Not heavy. Not stomping. But slow. Careful. The steps pause near the crumbling altar that was once decorated for a ceremony that never happened. The veil was prepared. The flowers arranged. The vows unwritten. The celebration turned to mourning. In the empty dining room, silverware remains tarnished on the table as if guests could return at any moment. A layer of frost sometimes appears on the plates, even in the warmest months. The windows rattle. The candles flicker without flame. An unseen draft curls around ankles like a hand testing for warmth. Sometimes a cold veil of air surrounds visitors. It presses close. As if someone unseen stands inches away. Breathing in the same space. Watching. People describe the sensation like a thin curtain of winter passing through their bones. They freeze in place, unable to speak, waiting for it to pass. It always does. Slowly. As though the presence behind it chooses to leave. Those who remain long enough claim Hawthorne Hall does not want them to go just yet. The doors hesitate before opening. The locks catch. The hallways seem longer on the way out than on the way in. Like the house is stretching itself, deciding whether to release its guests or keep them for the night. But no one stays past midnight. Not anymore. Over the centuries, caretakers have come and gone. Most leave before their first year ends. A few refuse to speak about what they saw. One wrote a journal that was discovered in a desk drawer. The feeling of cold fingers brushing the back of his neck as he slept. By the final page, his handwriting trembled. After that, he vanished from town records. Outside, the oak trees lean toward the windows. Their branches bend unnaturally, as though listening. As though the wind carries secrets between them and the house. When storms roll in from the coast, the wind screams through those trees and the hall answers with groans of timber and rattling glass. Some locals believe the house has a memory of its own. They say it can recall every footstep, every voice, every moment that has ever happened inside its walls. Others say it is trying to finish the ceremony that never took place. That someday it will find the missing vow. The missing prayer. The missing promise. From time to time, travelers visiting out of curiosity report seeing a figure in the ballroom window. Pale. Still. Wearing something that looks like a gown that has aged with the wood and dust. They blink and she disappears. Not into a corner. Simply gone. As the night grows deeper, the house seems to breathe. The walls tighten. The silence expands. The chandeliers sway just slightly, as though disturbed by a presence that cannot be seen. The distant crying begins again. Softer than before. Like a memory on the edge of sound. Locals avoid the area after sunset. They cross the road to keep distance. They do not speak the name of the woman who was meant to be a bride. They do not look at the windows for too long. They know the house watches back. Hawthorne Hall remains standing. Weathered by centuries. Rooted like an old tree in the soil of Massachusetts history. It is a place where time seems to fold, where footsteps echo without feet. And where unfinished vows hang in the air like fog. Those who visit remember the cold air that wrapped around them. And the feeling of something unseen standing beside them. And the knowledge that midnight is a boundary that must not be crossed. Because past that hour, the house is no longer patient. And whatever lingers in the ballroom may finally reach out for the hand it was promised. And wait. Wait. For an answer. That never came. Blackburn Manor sits beyond the tree line in rural Virginia, where the forest grows close and the air hangs heavy with the weight of old secrets. Locals say the house does not welcome strangers. It studies them. And sometimes, it remembers them long after they are gone. The manor was built in the late 1700s by a man named Elias Blackburn, a landowner whose fortune rose faster than anyone could explain. His success came suddenly, almost unnaturally, culminating in the construction of a mansion that seemed too grand for the quiet landscape around it. Brick by brick it rose, towering over the fields like a monument to something more than wealth. Some whispered it was a monument to a promise. A pact. From the outside, the structure looks like any aging southern estate. Tall windows. Weathered columns. Ivy crawling slowly up the walls. But a closer look reveals something different. Narrow circles are carved into the wooden doorframes, each etched with care, as though someone once believed they served a purpose. Not decoration. Protection. As if the first owner feared something he could not see, but expected. Inside, the air changes. The temperature drops. The silence settles in a way that feels alive. The grand staircase is the centerpiece of the manor, curving upward in a wide arc toward the second floor. The boards are known to groan, not like old wood settling, but like the strained exhale of something carrying a heavy weight. Guests have reported hearing footsteps moving slowly down the steps, deliberate and measured, yet no figure ever appears. The wood bends each time, sagging just slightly, like someone or something enormous is moving as if it still remembers how to be human. Those who stay overnight speak of pacing footsteps along the balcony. The sound travels from one end to the other in steady lines, back and forth, back and forth. As though a restless spirit is patrolling the same path it did in life. When the footsteps pause, the silence becomes even worse. Because that is when visitors realize the sound has stopped directly outside their bedroom door. Mirrors inside the manor behave strangely. During the day they seem fogged, as though someone breathed against them from within. At night, the fog thickens until the reflection disappears entirely, leaving only the faint outline of movement behind the glass. Some have claimed to hear soft breathing echo behind them, slow and steady. Too close to be imagination. Elias Blackburn died inside the manor under circumstances that were never fully explained. The record state illness. Locals believe otherwise. Legend says he had tried to secure his wealth not only for life, but beyond it, and to do so he struck a bargain no ordinary person would dare to make. After his death, the staff resigned one by one. They left food outside the cellar door but refused to enter. They stopped looking in mirrors. They hammered shut the attic entrance with boards and iron nails. Over the generations, the manor changed owners, though never for long. Furniture was abandoned. Doors were left open as though people escaped in haste rather than moved out. Each time a new caretaker arrived, they encountered the same things. Whispers that fade when listened to directly, but strengthen when ignored. The cellar is the part of the house that no one wants to speak about. The door sits at the far end of a narrow hallway, colder than any other part of the manor. The lock is rusted but strong. When the door is opened, the smell of damp stone leaks out along with something else. Something metallic. Something old. Those who enter the cellar do not talk about what they saw. Their silence is not dramatic or exaggerated. It is quiet. Stunned. Like people who returned but left something behind. Some have emerged pale and shaking, unable to step near the stairs again. Others simply left without a word and never returned. There are rumors of a chamber beneath the cellar floor. A chamber built later, sometime after Blackburn's fortune began to change. No record of it exists in any official document. But visitors claim they hear sounds rising from below. A heartbeat. Slow and heavy. As if something deep underground is waiting for the door to open again. Even the land around Blackburn Manor feels altered. Animals avoid the property line. Birds do not land on the roof. On still nights, windows rattle without wind. The house seems to breathe. The doors tighten with each inhale. If one listens closely, it almost sounds like a pulse. Those who have investigated the manor leave with the same question. If Elias Blackburn made a pact to keep his wealth beyond death, did he succeed? Or did he sacrifice something else to achieve it? Blackburn Manor remains standing, untouched by time yet shaped by it all the same. It holds its secrets close. It holds its silence like a warning. And the carved circles in the doorframes endure, not as decoration but as a reminder that whatever Elias Blackburn tried to keep away is still searching for a door. And perhaps still knocking. Where the tree lean folds inward like a curtain hiding something from the world. And yet holding a depth that feels almost watchful. Of influence and power. The mansion was built in the late 18th century by the Ravenshade family, a lineage of wealthy landowners whose fortune rose from ironworks and coal fields. Their influence was undeniable. Their reach was vast. But the Estetia's fortunes shifted abruptly in the late 1800s. Records mention financial disputes, unexplained deaths, and a mass departure of the household staff. In a matter of years, Ravenshade Estate went from a place of opulence to a structure left to the elements. Inside the front hall, dust coats the marble floors like frost. Each frame is gilded, cracked with age, and every face within these paintings seems alive with impossible clarity. Their eyes are the first thing visitors mention. Too human. Too focused. Too aware. Many have claimed that when they walk past, the portraits do not remain as they were. Expressions shift. Small changes at first. A tightness in the jaw. A lift at the corner of a lip. A narrowing of the eyes as if deciding something about the person standing before them. Some swear they have seen the faces smile. Others insist they have seen them scowl. A few have described faces frozen in terror, as though the subjects are witnessing something the viewer cannot see. No official explanation has ever been given for the effect. The portraits are examined. And yet the sense of movement returns every time the hallway grows quiet. It is as though the stillness invites them to breathe. Deeper in the house, the scent of old wood and rainwater lingers in the air. Rooms remain furnished, untouched by time, as if the family simply walked away one afternoon and never returned. A dining table rests with places set, the silverware tarnished but aligned perfectly. A grand piano sits in the corner of the parlor, its keys yellowed and stiff. Visitors report hearing a melody drift from the instrument long after the lid has been sealed shut. At the end of the west wing is a narrow hallway, dim even during daylight hours. The wallpaper is peeling, and the wooden floor creaks like something shifting beneath it. This hallway is where the reports grow more unsettling. Witnesses claim to hear the sound of footsteps falling in perfect rhythm behind them. Others describe whispers they cannot interpret, a voice speaking in a tone that is neither friendly nor hostile, only present. Some have heard a soft, rhythmic tapping along the wall as though someone small is following them just out of view. The most unnerving stories come from those who encounter the sound of a child's laughter. At first, the laughter seems playful, like a game being enjoyed out of sight. But as it continues, the tone shifts. The sound stretches too long. Deepens or sharpens suddenly, like a voice that cannot decide what it wants to be. Not anger, not sorrow, but something colder. Something deliberate. There is no record of children ever living in Ravenshade Estate. No nursery listed in the household inventory. Yet the sound continues. It has been reported by visitors, historians, researchers, and restoration workers alike. It begins softly, ends abruptly, and leaves an emptiness in the air as though whatever made the sound is still standing nearby. In the master study at the center of the home, an ornate chair sits turned toward a window overlooking the grounds. Workers have moved it. Investigators have shifted it aside. Without fail, the chair returns to its original placement. Facing the glass. Watching the yard. As though someone waits for a carriage long overdue or a visitor who never arrived. Old journals found in the desk speak vaguely of sleepless nights and a presence in the halls. The final entries are brief, written with a trembling hand. They mention portraits that stare too long. Footsteps that stop just outside the bedroom door. One entry ends mid-sentence, ink dragged sharply across the page. No further writings were found. Today, Ravenshade Estate sits untouched. The land is overgrown. The windows remain dark at sunrise and darker at dusk. Though the building is structurally sound, restoration crews refuse to stay past nightfall. A caretaker visits once a month, ensuring the locks remain sealed. He does not speak of the estate. He simply ensures the gates stay closed. Still, from the roadside, travelers sometimes pause and watch the silhouette of the mansion against the trees. Some swear they see a shadow move across the upper floor. Others insist they can feel the quiet staring back through the glass. The portraits remain in their places. Their eyes remain alert. And the hallway waits with its echo of distant laughter. Ravenshade Estate is abandoned, but it does not feel empty. It feels observed. It feels remembered. It feels as though the house is waiting. Briarstone House stands alone at the edge of Maryland woodland, half hidden behind a veil of thick ivy. The vines crawl across the stone like fingers, gripping the structure as if nature is trying to pull it back into the earth. On misty mornings, the house seems to fade into the gray air, like it wants to disappear entirely. Travelers say it feels less like a building and more like something watching, waiting, and breathing in the silence. Inside, every room carries the same chill. Not the simple cold of a long-abandoned home, but a deeper cold that settles under the skin. The air feels wet, as though water is seeping from the foundation. The walls feel damp to the touch. The ceilings bead with moisture that never falls. And the floors remain dry, even though the sound of dripping water echoes like footsteps in the dark. Visitors mention the dripping first. Then it grows louder. Drip. 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 A subtle rhythm that seems to lead down the hallway, guiding unwanted guests deeper inside. When they follow the sound, it always ends the same way. Sometimes gently, like a polite reminder to go. Other times with force, the slam echoing through every corridor like a heartbeat. It is as if the house is trying to lure them, or warn them. Those who have stayed overnight describe the doors as living things, opening and shutting as though someone unseen is pacing back and forth, unsettled and restless. The voice is harder to explain. A whisper that drifts through the halls like a draft. It carries a tone of exhaustion, as if whatever is speaking has been there for too long. Some guests hear it behind them. Others hear it just before sleep. A single word. Leave. Always that same word, dragged out as if it hurts to speak it. Not angry. Not threatening. Just tired, ancient, and sorrowful. The lower floors feel strange, but the attic is worse. Everyone agrees on that. Even those who refuse to believe in hauntings refuse to stay up there. The temperature drops the moment anyone climbs the final step. Breath turns pale in the air. The wooden beams groan as if the weight of something unseen stretches across them. The attic holds a heaviness that makes the mind race and the pulse quicken. As though something waits at the edges of the dark, just beyond sight. At the center of the attic, there is a trunk. Old, wooden, reinforced with metal that has rusted over. It looks like it belonged to another century. It has never been opened. Or at least, no one claims to have opened it. Later owners tried to remove it, but the trunk would not budge. 4 men once attempted to drag it down the stairs. The rope snapped. 1 man fell. None of them tried again. Neighbors swear the trunk moves during storms. They say it shifts, scraping across the floorboards. And at night, some report hearing a knocking sound coming from inside it. Slow at first. Then faster. Like something trapped is begging to be let out. Most who visit Briarstone House never return. Not because of danger, but because of the feeling it leaves behind. A weight in the mind. A pressure in the chest. Memories like damp fingerprints left on the inside of the skull. They say the house follows you. In dreams. In moments of silence. In the sound of dripping water that appears in places where no water should be. There is a history to the place, but the records are fragmented. Names scratched out. Dates missing. Stories circling with no clear beginning. Some claim a family once lived there and fell apart piece by piece. Others tell of a caretaker who vanished while searching for the source of the dripping sound. His lantern was found near the attic door, still warm. He was never seen again. The trunk became the center of rumors. Some believe it belonged to the first owners, who arrived decades before any official records mention the home. There was talk of illness, of shadows moving under locked doors, of footsteps echoing up the stairs long after the family stopped walking. Whatever is in the trunk, or whatever the trunk was meant to contain, may have been the reason the house began to change. Over time, Briarstone House stopped being a home. It became a landmark no map lists. A building everyone knows but no one approaches. Travelers on the road pass by without slowing down. Locals cross to the other side of the street rather than walk near the gates. Even animals avoid the property. Birds refuse to land on the roof. Stray dogs howl but never step forward. The ivy continues to climb, the house leans deeper into the ground. It feels like it is being reclaimed. Like it was never meant to exist above the soil. Like something inside it belongs to the earth and wants to return. But the trunk remains. Still sealed. Still waiting. On silent nights, when the mist covers the property. A single sound drifts from inside Briarstone House. A steady rhythm. Knuckles against wood. 3 slow knocks from the attic floor. Then, just before the sound stops, a final whisper moves through the empty rooms. Ashford Colonial Estate stands in the quiet woodlands of Connecticut, its foundations laid in 1736 during the early days of colonial settlement. The house rises from the ground like a monument to a past that never fully let go. Time has softened the edges of its white exterior, yet its windows still hold the stern gaze of a structure that has witnessed centuries of unresolved history. Travelers say the estate looks like it is waiting for someone to return. Locals say it is waiting for something to end. The estate was once a place of wealth and gatherings. Early colonial families used the grand halls for dinners, negotiations, and moments of celebration. But the Revolutionary War arrived like a cold wind and pulled the estate into the conflicts of the era. Soldiers were sheltered here, letters were written in haste by candlelight, and illness followed the footsteps of those who passed through its doors. When peace returned, the building did not feel peaceful. It felt scarred, as if something unseen had been left behind. Stepping inside is like entering a memory frozen in place. The wooden floor groans, the walls breathe faint drafts of cold air, and portraits of unfamiliar faces still hang in the corridors. They appear worn by age, yet their painted eyes track the space around them. The grand dining room sits at the center of the estate. It is the room most spoken about in town, the room that has drawn the attention of historians and investigators. It always smells faintly of smoke, even though the hearth has not been lit in over 100 years. People report the scent before they see anything else. A smoky sweetness drifting through the air like the remnants of a long-dead fire. The far wall of the dining room is blackened as if scorched by flames. Charcoal stains streak upward toward the ceiling, and the pattern resembles smoke swirling in slow motion. Yet there are no official records of a fire. No collapse, no repairs, no event that would explain the damage. According to written history, the estate never burned. The contradiction is what makes the room unsettling. The wall should not look like that. It should not wear the signature of an event that never happened. Over the years, the estate gained a reputation. In the late 1800s, reports began to circulate about unusual occurrences. Visitors described sudden chills, the feeling of being watched, and the sound of footsteps that never approached. Some wrote about hearing muffled gathering sounds, as if people were talking just beyond the walls. These stories never reached newspapers, but they remained alive in community memory. Then came the disappearances. They did not happen all at once. The first was a tradesman from a nearby town hired to repair the outer windows. He entered the estate to gather measurements. His tools were found near the dining room door. He was not. Decades later, a caretaker hired to catalog household items vanished without resigning or collecting pay. His ledger ended mid-sentence, with his handwriting trailing off. These cases were never officially linked, but residents saw a pattern. People entered, and something in the estate decided they did not need to leave. Today, when night settles over the grounds, the air grows heavy. The estate does not glow with warmth like a home. It broods. It waits. Those who have been inside after dusk speak of charred footprints appearing across the floor. They begin near the blackened wall of the dining room and trail toward the main corridor. They look like the prints of bare feet, burned and ash-coated, walking toward the exit. But they never reach the door. They fade midway through the hall as if the one who left them vanished before completing the journey. Some believe these footprints belong to a person lost in the estate's past. A victim of an unrecorded fire. Tried to escape, failed, and now retraces their final steps over and over again. Others think it is something older. Something connected to the house in a way that predates fire, predates war, predates the family who built it. The estate's foundations were placed over ground once used for a purpose that no record fully explains. Only fragments of references remain, implying rituals or gatherings long before 1736. Standing in the dining room, the story becomes more than history. The smell of smoke grows stronger. The blackened wall seems to pulse, as if heat lies beneath the surface. The chairs still rest around the table, facing each other as if awaiting guests. The silence is immense and expectant. Some say if you stay long enough, you will hear footsteps circle the table. You will feel someone pass behind you. Not close enough to touch, but close enough that every instinct warns you to leave. The estate is protected now, not by law but by caution. Few enter without reason. Fewer stay after nightfall. Historians continue to search for documentation to explain the scorched wall. They find nothing. Investigators visit to study the footprints. They find no evidence of tampering. No soot. No material residue. The prints look burned but leave no substance behind. They are like the memory of damage rather than damage itself. Ashford Colonial Estate does not scream its story. It draws attention without asking for it. Generations have passed through, each adding to the mystery and never subtracting from it. The house seems to endure because the past refuses to resolve. The burned wall remains black. The smell of smoke lingers. And every so often, when the lights go out and the halls fall silent, the charred footprints return. They wait until morning to vanish. Willoughby House stands beyond the last bend of a rural South Carolina road, where the pavement narrows and the trees gather close as though guarding a secret. The grounds are older than the mansion itself, older than any structure that has ever stood there. Some say the land was never meant to be disturbed. Others say the house was not built, but invited. Visitors often stop at the edge of the property, unsure if they should continue. The air feels different there, thick with heat and memory. The cicadas that sing through the rest of the wood seem to quiet when you step near the gate. Even birds grow silent, watching from the branches as if waiting for something to happen. People have reported feeling watched from the moment their feet touch the path. Eyes in the tree lean. Eyes beyond the windows. Eyes in places where no one stands. Shadows move between the trees even when the night is still. They slip from trunk to trunk like ink spreading through water, never fully formed, never fully gone. Inside the house, the air feels cooler. Not refreshing. Not comforting. It feels like entering a room where someone was just standing but left the moment before you arrived. The wooden floors are scuffed with age and drag marks, as though something heavy has been pulled from one room to another again and again over the years. Whispers slither along the walls. They seem to come from the cracks in the paint, from the seams in the floorboards, from the space between the ceiling beams. Some are pleas spoken with shaking breath. Some are warnings, sharp as broken glass. And some are neither human nor kind. They scrape the mind like metal against stone. A diary found in a dresser decades ago described the house as restless. The writer spoke of nights when footsteps moved in the attic, pacing from corner to corner. They wrote about a door that refused to stay closed, opening with a long sigh as if something unseen wandered through the rooms at its own pace. The final entry ended abruptly, the ink dragging into a line as though the pen was torn from the page. In the parlor, portraits hang crooked on the walls. Faces painted in stiff, old-fashioned poses stare outward. Their expressions seem to change when the light moves, as though they are listening. As though they are remembering. The floor beneath them groans like something is shifting deep inside the boards. The dining room table remains set for a meal no one remembers. Plates wait beneath a thin coat of dust, and chairs sit just slightly pulled from the table, as if the occupant stood up and stepped away all at once. A cold draft curls between the chairs. It smells faintly of earth after rain, and something older, like the scent of a cellar never opened. Beyond the hallway is a staircase. Narrow. Steep. People who climb it have said that halfway up they feel a pressure beside them, like someone climbing in step. They cannot see it. They cannot hear it breathe. But they feel the weight of its attention. The moment they reach the top, the feeling is gone. Silence waits like an open door. Upstairs, the bedrooms are filled with dust-covered furniture and curtains that stir even when the windows are closed. One room holds a wardrobe with a cracked mirror. The reflection is never quite right. The room behind you looks normal at first glance. But if you stare too long, the arrangement seems to shift. A chair that was beside the window now stands near the door. The bed looks like someone has laid upon it only moments before. In the farthest corner of the upper floor sits a door swollen with age. Behind it, the air is cold enough to see breath. The walls are lined with wallpaper peeling like old skin. At night, visitors hear someone whispering on the other side. They cannot make out the words. They only know the voice is aware of them. Locals claim Willoughby House remembers everyone who enters. They say the land holds memory like a hand grips soil. Some believe an older foundation lies beneath the current structure, built long before the stones were placed in their present shape. The trees around the mansion grow with twisted roots that reach toward the house, as if drawn to it or held in place by it. Shadows on the porch do not always match the bodies that cast them. Sometimes they stretch too far. Sometimes they pause when the person moves. Sometimes they remain when no one stands there at all. When night falls, the house settles into silence. Crickets return to song beyond the gate. But inside, all is still. Then the whispers begin again. They crawl through halls and slip beneath closed doors. They do not call names. They only speak as though continuing a conversation that began centuries ago. There are visitors who claim they heard footsteps following behind them, stopping when they stopped, beginning again when they walked. One person described a breath on the back of their neck, cold as river water. Another found handprints on the fogged surface of a window that no one had touched. Those who approach the back of the estate find a stone well. Its bricks are chipped and darkened. The water at the bottom reflects nothing, not even the sky above. The moss around the stones grows thicker than anywhere else on the property. Sometimes the wind moves through those trees like a voice. A sound between word and memory. A warning or a welcome. People do not stay long. They leave before the sun sinks too low. Before the trees begin to lean. Before the moss looks like it is reaching for them. The ones who linger feel a pull. Like the house is asking them to step inside again. To listen to the whispers. To stay until the conversation is finished. Willoughby House remains where it has always stood. Watching. Waiting. Holding its silence like a secret. And its shadows like company. The moss sways in the wind. D ing the trees in pale veils. The land breathes. And somewhere inside the walls. Something whispers. Not to speak. But to be heard. Stone Marrow residence stands at the northern edge of New York State, where the forests grow tall enough to block the horizon and the wind whistles through the branches like distant voices. The mansion is built from pale gray stone, cold to the touch even in summer, and its foundation is said to rest on a fault of bedrock that groans when the seasons change. Locals call it the spine of the house, as if the structure is not assembled, but grown. As if it has bones. Named for this stone, Stone Marrow is known for more than its unsettling architecture. Travelers speak of the strange feeling that begins the moment they cross the threshold. A hum. A quiet vibration beneath the feet, like the walls are holding tension. Like the earth beneath the foundation is restless. The mansion was completed in the mid-1800s, commissioned by a reclusive industrialist who chose the land not for its beauty, but for its isolation. He built the residence in a sprawling shape that winds back into the trees, its hallways narrowing the deeper one goes. Early accounts describe workers quitting the project before completion, claiming that the ground beneath the basement shifted, as though something huge was moving underground. Their stories were dismissed as superstition, yet even now the floorboards tremble without reason, as if responding to some unseen heartbeat. Although the upper floors of Stone Marrow feel abandoned, the basement carries the true weight of its mystery. The doors that lead downward are heavy in a way that defies explanation. Cold metal handles resist the touch, and the wood refuses to move until forced. Some claim the doors do not feel like they are being pushed open, but like they are being pulled closed from the other side. Something in the house seems to want them shut. The deeper one goes, the more the air grows strange. Candles flicker wildly, even with no breeze to disturb them. Flames bend sideways, as though pulled by an unseen current. Even hands cupped tightly around the flame cannot protect it. The light dies instantly, leaving darkness so complete that visitors hesitate to breathe. Rooms shift in subtle but noticeable ways. A dining hall that feels miles long in the evening appears smaller in the morning. Furniture changes position without sound. Windows reflect rooms that are not the ones they face. Those who sleep inside the mansion wake up disoriented, not in the room they fell asleep in, but in another entirely. A few awaken on the basement steps, with no memory of how they got there. It is said that Stone Marrow chooses where its guests rest. The mansion's history is dotted with unexplained events. A caretaker in the early 1900s documented nights when the house vibrated as though something beneath it was trying to rise. He wrote that the stone foundation creaked like shifting ribs and that the pipes rattled in a pattern too rhythmic to be random. Another resident, decades later, reported feeling the floor ripple underfoot like water, though the boards never broke. There is a corridor on the eastern side where the walls narrow until they force visitors to turn sideways. And even then, the stone feels like it is pressing inward. The hallway leads to a single locked door. No key has ever been found. Behind it, a faint sound whispers through the stone. A scrape. A drag. A slow and patient motion. As though whatever lies beyond is working its way closer, inch by inch. Some believe the mansion was built over an older structure, something ancient and buried. Local folklore suggests that the ground was once considered cursed, not because of spirits but because it seemed to be alive. Hunters refused to camp there. Surveyors reported instruments that shook uncontrollably. Even before the house existed, the soil trembled beneath their boots. Whatever the truth, Stone Marrow residence stands as though it is waiting for someone. Or something. Visitors who attempt to document their experiences report their equipment malfunctioning. Cameras record static instead of images. Audio devices pick up a constant, low rumble, like breath against the microphone. One voice recorder captured a moment of silence followed by a deep exhale that seemed to come from the walls themselves. Engineers who examined the recording could not identify the source. The sound was not mechanical. It was organic. Late at night, the basement feels like the center of the house. Not just physically, but intentionally. The earth beneath the stone shifts like a vast body turning in its sleep. Dust drifts upward, falling from the ceiling as though something below struck the foundation. Footsteps echo where no one walks. Water drips where there are no pipes. Some visitors describe the overwhelming feeling that they should not descend any farther. Not because of fear, but because they sense they are intruding. Like someone else already occupies the space. Someone who has not seen the sun in centuries. No record states what may lie beneath the lowest floor. There are no blueprints that show the original plans. No documents that explain why the builder refused to discuss the basement after construction. But every person who stands at the top of the stairs feels the same thing. They are not alone. Stone Marrow residence remains closed to the public. The windows are boarded. The driveway is overgrown. Yet those who pass by at night swear they see a faint glow shining from beneath the door that leads to the basement. Not a candle. Not electricity. Something deeper. Something alive. The house waits. The stone hums. The ground shifts with purpose. And anyone who sleeps within its walls may wake to find that the mansion has moved them. Not randomly, but deliberately. As if placing them where it wants them to be. As if preparing for the moment when whatever lies beneath Stone Marrow decides to rise. That once echoed with the sound of marching boots. Its windows look out over land that has known soldiers, patience, and children. The building began as a military outpost during the early 19th century. Soldiers trained on the lawn. Supplies were stored in the cellar. Lanterns burned through the night in the upper windows. Officers wrote reports of conflicts far from home. When the outpost was abandoned, Shaparda's Grange changed hands. It became a private residence. Then a hospital during a time of regional illness. And eventually an orphanage. Every transformation left its mark. Every purpose reshaped the rooms without ever clearing the echo of what came before. Visitors who approach the property describe a shift in the air as they near the front steps. The breeze goes still. The field grows silent. And an old scent settles over the grounds, like iron and damp soil, as if the earth remembers every footstep that crossed it. Inside, the entrance hall is narrow and dim. The wood beneath the paint has warped with age. And the staircase creaks beneath even the lightest touch. The building carries a feeling that time continues to move outside, while inside it lingers, coiled and waiting. The walls have been repainted many times. But beneath every layer is a history that refuses to fade. On the upper floors, visitors have reported the unmistakable sound of chains dragging across the boards. The noise is slow, like something heavy being pulled from room to room. Some hear it behind walls. Others hear it overhead, pacing the ceiling like a prisoner walking the length of a cell. It always starts at one end of the hall and travels to the other. Always the same path. Always the same rhythm. At night, beds tremble as if someone has climbed onto them. The movement is subtle at first, barely enough to notice, like the weight of a small animal. Then the shaking grows stronger, as though a presence is settling itself beside the person lying there. Those who have stayed overnight describe the sensation not as violent, but deliberate. As if something unseen is checking who rests there. As if it is remembering a routine it once performed. Throughout the building, the scent of iron fills the air. It clings to the hallways, to the door frames, to the fabric of the old infirmary beds. Some say it smells like rust. Others say it resembles the metallic sting of blood. The hospital records from its time in operation mention overcrowded rooms, understaffed wards, and nights spent in triage while storms battered the windows. Illness and injury were common, and many never left the building after arriving. In the long central hallway, figures have been seen standing motionless along the walls. They do not speak. They do not move. They simply face the plaster, aligned as if waiting for instructions. They do not speak. They do not move. They simply face the plaster, aligned as if waiting for instructions. In the orphanage years, the rooms were filled with small beds, arranged in rows. Toys were left behind when the building closed, some still sitting where they were last placed. A doll rests in a cradle with dust on its face. The halls that once echoed with children's footsteps now fall silent, yet there are times when visitors claim to hear the soft patter of feet racing along the corridors. The steps stop at doorways, pause, and vanish as though whoever is running has disappeared just before being seen. The cellar beneath Shaparda's Grange is the oldest part of the structure. Stone walls hold the cold even in summer. Some explorers have reported seeing scratch marks in the stone, as though someone or something had tried to leave a message that was never finished. Voices have been heard here too, quiet and strained, like someone speaking through a closed door. A tone that sounds tired. A tone that sounds resigned. Restoration teams have attempted to renovate the building several. Supplies arrive. Work begins. But every team leaves before the project is complete. Tools go missing. Doors refuse to stay open, swinging shut even without a draft. On more than one occasion, workers have stepped outside for air and found the front door locked behind them despite leaving it wide open moments earlier. No explanation is ever found. No one stays after sunset. No explanation is ever found. Local residents keep their distance. They acknowledge the building from afar, but rarely speak of it. Some believe the structure has absorbed the emotions of those who lived and died within it. Others think it stands as a container for memories that never found closure. No matter the theory, the result is the same. Sparta's Grange remains untouched. Observed but not approached. Present but left alone. At dusk, the house takes on a different shape. The horizon glows with fading light. And the windows of Sparta's Grange turn black. The edges of the building seem to lean forward, as if the structure itself is listening. The fields grow quiet again. The scent of iron lingers in the breeze. And somewhere on the upper floor, the slow drag of chains resumes its steady path. Inside those walls, history has not settled. It has not moved on. It remains upright, lingering like the figures who stand facing the plaster, waiting for a signal that never comes. Sparta's Grange has lived many lives. A military outpost. A home. A hospital. An orphanage. None of those roles were peaceful. All of them left something behind. What stands now is not just a building. It is the memory of what happened there, still echoing through every hallway. Still pacing the upper floors. Still waiting in the dark. Foxbury Colonial Mansion stands on a quiet Delaware estate bordered by aging elms that sway like sentinels. Its exterior is grand, elegant, and timeless, with white columns and polished brickwork that speak of wealth and pride from another century. Visitors often admire its beauty from the road. Many even say it looks inviting, a picture of old-world grace. But beyond the front door, the air changes. The elegance fades into something colder. Something that feels aware. Something that feels waiting to see how long someone will last. Inside, the floors gleam as though freshly polished, yet no caretaker has lived on the property in decades. Portraits line the hallways. Their eyes follow from every angle, painted faces frozen in expressions that are neither warm nor welcoming. The silence is heavy. It feels rehearsed. Like the house is holding its breath. The ballroom is the heart of the mansion, and it is this room that makes Foxbury infamous. Sunlight from the tall windows casts pale reflections across the marble floor. Yet the room feels colder than the rest of the house. At its center stands a grand piano that has not been played by human hands in generations. Still, guests report hearing music. A slow waltz, soft at first, drifting from the piano keys. The melody echoes across the ballroom. Too perfect, too steady, as though played by someone with flawless skill. Sometimes, the music begins before anyone reaches the ballroom. It pulls them closer, note by note, as if inviting them to witness something they are not meant to see. And when they step through the doorway, they are no longer alone. Pale figures glide across the floor, pairs of dancers moving in synchronized circles. Their bodies look almost human, but their features are blurred, like memories that refuse to sharpen. Their faces are smooth and blank, empty of expression, like masks with nothing underneath. Witnesses describe an overwhelming urge to remain still and silent. The music swells, slow and sorrowful, filling the air with a sadness that settles deep inside. Couples twirl in perfect rhythm. There is no sound of feet on the floor, only the music and the faint rush of air as they pass. The dancers never acknowledge the living at first. They move as if trapped in a memory they cannot leave. Repeating a routine from a night long forgotten. If someone lingers too long, everything changes. The dancers slow. Their movements falter. The music drags through the final notes. And then, the entire ballroom falls silent. The dancers turn to face the living. No expression. No eyes. Just blank faces pointed directly at whoever is watching. The temperature drops sharply in that moment, cold enough to sting the skin and numb the fingertips. Some say the dancers begin to walk toward them, their steps out of sync, as if relearning how to move. Others insist they only stare, waiting for the observer to react. The outcome depends on the visitor. Some run. Some freeze. A few claim they could not look away no matter how hard they tried. Those who make it out of the ballroom speak of the sensation of being followed. Not physically. Not with footsteps. But with a presence that lingers, watching from doorways and mirrors. They catch glimpses of movement behind them. A drifting shadow. The faint echo of music that fades before they can locate its source. It leaves them with the feeling that the mansion does not like being interrupted. That the dance will continue, with or without witnesses. Foxbury's history is fractured, scattered across old records and faded accounts. The mansion hosted grand events in its earliest years, lavish gatherings for Delaware's elite. There are stories of a final ball held during a storm, where candles flickered and went out mid-song. Some believe the dancers seen today are the echoes of those lost that night. Not spirits seeking revenge, but remnants of a moment that never ended. A memory so strong it refuses to die. Others suggest the house is not replaying the past. It is waiting for replacements. Their absence was never explained. Their names disappeared from public record. Portraits in the hallway seem to change over time, as though new faces appear among the old. Blank expressions. Painted eyes that resemble someone who once stood in the ballroom and stayed too long. Outside the ballroom, the rest of the mansion is no less unsettling. Doors open to rooms that feel wrong, as if they have been rearranged since the last visit. The dining room chairs are sometimes pulled away from the table, as though a meal was interrupted seconds before. On rare occasions, soft footsteps travel through the halls, one after the other, like someone searching for a partner to dance with. The footsteps always stop when heard. Despite its reputation, Foxbury Colonial Mansion still attracts the curious. They come for the legends, for the promise of music with no performer, and for the chance to see the dancers themselves. Most leave with only a memory. Others leave with more. A faint echo of a waltz that follows them home. A reflection in a mirror that does not move as it should. A feeling that someone is waiting. Those who return to the mansion find the ballroom unchanged. The piano still sits at the center. The floor still gleams as if polished each night. And sometimes, when the air is still, the music begins again. Soft. Slow. Calling someone back to witness the waltz. If the dancers appear, they glide across the marble once more. Beautiful. Silent. Detached from the world of the living. They do not acknowledge the watcher. Not until the watcher begins to stare. Then the ballroom stills. The music fades. And every face turns. Blank. Waiting. Grief Wind Hall stands on the outskirts of rural Georgia, surrounded by fields that never seem to rest. The wind moves through the property as if it has a purpose. Locals say the wind is older than the house. It was there before the first foundation stone was placed. And when the house was built, the wind chose never to leave. The hall was constructed in the early 1800s by a man named Elias Warrenton, a landowner known for his ambition and loyalty to the land. He poured his resources into every detail, choosing strong timber, carved banisters, and windows wide enough to see approaching storms long before they reached the property. Elias believed he could outlast any hardship. But a storm arrived one night that defied every expectation. It came without warning, tearing through the fields and striking the house with a force like nothing the family had ever seen. By dawn, the hall still stood, but Elias had lost everything he cared for. Records say he stayed in the house after the storm, refusing to leave. Neighbors heard him calling out for voices that never answered. Some said he was searching the rooms for something he could not find. Others believed he was trapped in grief, unable to accept that the wind had taken what he loved. When Elias eventually passed, the doors of Grief Wind Hall were shut. But the wind did not stop. It rattled the windows as if trying to get inside. It scraped against the walls as if searching for him. Entering the hall today is like stepping into a breath being held too long. The air trembles. Floorboards shift underfoot. The ceilings creak as though the building is trying to speak. Even on a day without breeze, curtains sway as if stirred by invisible drafts. Visitors report feeling watched, not by eyes but by pressure, like the weight of an unseen storm pushing against their shoulders. Rooms that should be quiet are filled with soft vibrations. Cabinets shake. A low moan echoes from the chimney. The wind threads through every corner of the structure. It whistles under doorframes and hums through cracks in the plaster. Some say the hall groans like a wounded animal, as if the building itself is suffering. It is the voice, however, that draws the most attention. Witnesses describe hearing a man calling for help. The plea is strained, like someone caught in the space between desperation and exhaustion. Sometimes it is barely audible, as fragile as breath. Other times the voice rises, full of panic, shouting for anyone to listen. Get out, it warns, or sometimes let me out. No one agrees on which cry is truly being heard. But there is one detail every witness shares. The wind always responds. It roars through the hall as if carrying the message. Some believe the voice is Elias Warrenton. Others think the storm itself claimed a life that never fully moved on. In the upstairs hallway, where wallpaper peels and footsteps echo even when the hall is empty, the wind takes on a different tone. A slow, rhythmic cadence that drifts from room to room. The crying never leads to a source. It fades if followed. It returns when ignored. People who stay too long feel emotions that are not their own. An unexplained heaviness. A sense of loss that grips the chest. Visitors often leave abruptly, unsettled by feelings they cannot shake. The most unsettling reports come from the back parlor. During daylight, it appears ordinary. A sitting room with faded furniture and cracked windows that look toward the distant tree line. But at dusk, the atmosphere shifts. The wind presses against the glass like hands trying to break through. The walls vibrate with deep, droning sound. Not every visitor hears the begging. Some hear anger. A furious command for intruders to leave. Others swear the voice has warned them of danger, pushing them out before something unseen could reach them. Either way, no one leaves without remembering the sound of the wind joining the cry, moving through the hall like a chorus of unfinished grief. Outside, the property echoes with restless motion. Barn doors slam even when locked. Trees bend toward the house as if bowing in acknowledgement. Animals refuse to cross the boundary of the yard. The wind circles the building constantly, never dispersing. It feels directed. Intelligent. As if it knows the story and is unwilling to let it end. Researchers have studied the structure. They attribute the vibrations to aging beams and shifting soil. They explain the sounds as drafts moving through damaged frames. Their reports are rational, but they do not stay after sundown. Those who have remained overnight understand something the paperwork does not reveal. The hall is not empty. It is holding on to a memory that never resolved. Grief Wind Hall stands as a reminder of a storm that took more than a life. It took closure. It took peace. And now the wind carries that unfinished story through the corridors. Whispering, warning, begging, and screaming into the spaces where time has stopped moving. Visitors leave. The wind stays. Aldridge Manor stands on a rise of land at the edge of New Jersey woodlands. A long, brooding shape overlooking the trees as if it is waiting for something to return. Built in the late colonial era, the manor was commissioned by a judge known for punishments that were considered excessive even for his time. Locals whispered that he ruled more with emotion than law, and that his verdicts were shaped not by evidence but by the fear he inspired. Aldridge Manor became the monument to his authority, a place where the walls seemed to carry his voice long after he was gone. People who visit the manor arrive with steady breath. They walk the gravel path lined with dead leaves and reach for the rusted gate with confidence. But once they pass through, something changes. The air grows heavier, as if pressing down on the chest. Their hands tremble. Their heartbeat quickens. And by the time they walk back out, they shake uncontrollably, unable to explain why. The foyer greets visitors with portraits of stern faces. Men and women painted in dark clothing stand frozen in time, their eyes following those who move through the room. The Judge's portrait hangs above them all, massive in scale. His gaze is unblinking, heavy with the weight of authority. The wood beneath the frame is cracked, as though something struck it from behind. In the east wing, a courtroom remains preserved. Sometimes the gavel slams by itself. It echoes through the room with the force of a verdict, sharp and sudden. It startles birds from the rafters and sends visitors stumbling backwards. Those who stand still long enough swear they hear footsteps crossing the floor, pacing the way the judge once did as he delivered sentences. Aldridge Manor has a sound to it. Not the usual creaks of timber or the settling of old pipes. A slow tapping from the upper floor. A chair sliding. The faint scrape of metal. Those who dare enter the courtroom claim they have heard whispers rising from the corners, forming a single word that chills the spine. The word builds like a chant. Not loud. Not shouted. But layered, as though many voices speak at once. A reminder that the walls remember what happened there. Beyond the courtroom, a hallway leads to rooms where case documents once lined the shelves. Now the papers crumble at the corners and curl like withered leaves. Each drawer holds files stamped in red ink. The dates span decades. Some names are familiar to local families, and many descendants avoid the manor for that reason alone. Visitors describe the sensation of someone walking behind them. Not close enough to touch, but close enough to be felt. The air shifts, cold and purposeful. Sometimes a door slams at the far end of the hall. Other times, it creaks open just an inch, as if waiting for a command. At night, the house changes. Candle sconces along the walls, long and used, seem to glow with a dim ember as if lit from within. The temperature drops, and the wind outside circles the manor without passing through the windows. The entire structure feels alert. Awake. Listening for someone to enter. In the library, law books stand in uneven stacks. Many of their pages are filled with the Judge's handwriting, strict and angular. In the margins, phrases repeat in darker ink. Words that were added later. Words that feel less like notes and more like warnings. Beneath one paragraph describing sentencing practices lies a single line written again and again. The law is absolute. Above it, drawn in shaky strokes, is a symbol that appears nowhere else in the house. A scale, uneven, with the heavier plate sinking far too low. Some believe it represents injustice. Others think it marked a moment when the judge no longer trusted the courts to deliver the outcomes he desired. In the basement, chains hang from beams, their links rusted with age. It is unclear whether they were once used for storage or restraint. The room smells of stone and moisture, and the dripping of water echoes like a clock marking seconds no longer tied to time. Some visitors claim the chains sway on their own. Not enough to make sound, but enough to catch the eye and freeze the breath. No one stays in Aldrich Manor after sunset. Those who linger past dusk feel the atmosphere shift from hostile to watchful. People hear moving footsteps on the upper floors, as though someone is gathering for a trial that has not ended. A chair scrapes. The gavel falls. The verdict returns like a memory etched in the walls. There are stories of a final case the judge oversaw before his death. A trial with no recorded name. No documentation. Only a rumor that the defendant disappeared. Others believe it was delivered too late. The manor holds on to that unfinished moment, like a throat unable to speak a final word. Today, the building remains standing, its windows dark and its rooms undisturbed. The portrait of the judge hangs where it always has. The courtroom waits in the east wing. Dust covers the benches. The gavel rests at the ready. Visitors take a single step inside. Their bodies tense. Their breath shortens. They feel judgment settle over them like a cloak made of cold air. And somewhere in the silence, the whispers rise again. Guilty. The manor speaks the word like a memory. Sablewick Plantation Mansion rises from the bayou mist in southern Louisiana, its silhouette framed by cypress trees and hanging moss that sway without wind. The house stands alone at the end of a dirt road that seems to grow narrower with every step, as if the land itself wants visitors to turn back before they arrive. The air grows thicker the closer one gets, heavy enough to slow the breath. Even before reaching the steps, people say they can feel the weight of history pressing against them. The mansion was built in the early 1800s, during a time of hardship and relentless labor. Records show that the land changed owners frequently, each claiming prosperity before vanishing into obscurity. Stories tell of sickness, misfortune, and unexplained disappearances that drove families away. Yet the house remained. The structure is made of timber darkened by age and humidity, its paint peeling like something beneath is trying to push outward. The windows reflect the world outside, but the glass always seems too dark, like the rooms behind them are deeper than they should be. The interior feels different from the outside world, as if the walls trap every sound. The air is warm and stagnant, as though it has not moved in decades. Shadows collect in the corners, not like darkness caused by light, but like something living there. Doorways feel crowded, as if someone stands just beyond the threshold, waiting for eye contact. Candles are often used to explore the halls, but the flames burn strangely. Instead of soft gold, they glow with a dull black tint, bending low like they are struggling to hold shape. Visitors describe the sensation of being watched. Not from a single direction, but from all around. The feeling grows strongest near the grand hall, where long tables stretch across the floor. Where portraits hang with faces turned slightly away. The paintings seem to angle themselves differently each time someone looks up. Like the subjects inside them refuse to meet human eyes. A low creaking sound echoes along the rafters. Steady and patient like footsteps pacing above even when the upper floor is empty. Those who walk the main corridor sometimes feel a hand press against their back. Not a guiding hand. Not a gentle touch. A forceful pressure, as if the house itself is pushing them forward. Some try to resist only to feel the pressure increase, firm and unyielding. Until they step where the house seems to want them to go. The moment they comply, the pressure disappears, leaving behind a silence that hums like held breath. In the dining room, the temperature drops without warning. A chill rises from the floorboards, crawling up to the windows where condensation forms even in the heat of summer. The chandelier above sways in slow arcs, though the air is still. Silverware vibrates on the table, rattling faintly like distant thunder. People report hearing murmured voices around them, not loud enough to understand, but clear enough to know they are not alone. The upper level contains bedrooms that look preserved, untouched for decades. Mattresses remain made, drawers stay closed, and curtains fall perfectly still. But no bed feels empty when someone sits on it. The mattress sinks slightly, like sharing space with someone unseen. Mirrors in these rooms fog over from the inside, but not from breath or temperature, but as if something beneath the surface of the glass is exhaling slowly. Some claim to see shapes behind that fog, outline impressions of figures standing just behind their reflection. Sablewick's cellar is the part of the mansion most people refuse to visit. The stairs leading down are worn in the center, as though something heavy traveled them repeatedly. The air grows tight with each step, narrowing the lungs. The walls seem closer, the darkness thicker. Candles do not survive here. The moment the basement door opens, the flames are extinguished as if pulled by a hand that does not want light. No one remains long enough to understand why. History suggests that Sablewick holds memories. Not written in ledgers or documents, but absorbed into the walls. Every hardship, every cry, every fear that touched this land feels captured in the air like a memory replaying without sound. Those who pass through speak of a presence that does not feel like a single entity, but many. A collective weight that follows quietly, like a reminder that what happened here was never forgotten. And the house does not forgive. The land outside the mansion is no easier. The ground is soft and damp, sinking slightly beneath the feet. Trees lean inward as though reaching toward the structure. The wind whistles through the branches, mimicking a voice. Sometimes it sounds like a warning. Other times like an invitation. The river that borders the property moves slowly, reluctant as if it wishes to avoid the soil it touches. Animals do not approach. Birds fly wide circles rather than crossing overhead. At night, the mansion glows faintly from within, though no lights are lit. People passing by on the road swear they see figures standing in the windows. Not silhouettes. Shapes with posture. Presence. Watching. Waiting. Some say they hear tapping on the glass, like fingernails against a mirror. Others claim that if you stand at the gate and listen long enough, you will hear footsteps approaching from behind, even when nothing is there. Sablewick Plantation Mansion remains, suspended in time. A structure built from history and held together by memory. The house absorbs every emotion that touches it and reflects them back in silence. For those who step inside, the mansion offers no promises. Only presence. It remembers. And it will never let what it remembers fade. Winterhold Estate stands near the rocky coastline of Maine. Surrounded by evergreens that lean inward as if trying to protect the land from the wind that never stops blowing. The house is built of gray stone, with steep gables and narrow windows that look out toward the Atlantic Ocean. Even in the warmest months of the year, the estate remains cold. Not cool. Not breezy. Cold. Visitors step inside and immediately see their breath drifting in front of them. A pale mist that hangs in the still air. The builders designed Winterhold as a summer retreat in the late 19th century, a place where wealthy families could escape the heat and spend quiet months by the sea. A place where wealthy families could escape the heat and spend quiet months by the sea. But from the beginning, residents complained that the house was too cold. Fires burned constantly in the hearths, yet never warmed the walls. Even with blankets piled high and every door shut tight, the rooms never lost their chill. Over time, the estate was abandoned, left to endure decades of storms and snow. It became a place spoken of quietly, like a memory people did not want to think about for too long. Inside, frost crawls up the walls like veins. The temperature feels wrong, as if the rooms were not connected to the world outside. Guests describe a sensation not of being chilled from the environment, but as though the cold is seeping from within the house itself. The floorboards creak underfoot, releasing a soft echo that carries farther than it should, disappearing into the distance of the hallways. At night, the house becomes restless. Footsteps pace back and forth outside bedroom doors, each step steady and measured. The sound begins at one end of the hallway and travels to the other, stopping directly in front of a room as if the footsteps have found who they were looking for. Then a tapping begins. Soft and delicate, like fingertips grazing the metal of the doorknob. Not knocking. Not asking to be let in. The tapping continues, steady and deliberate, as though something on the other side is trying to turn it. Guests describe the knob trembling, shifting in its latch without fully twisting, as if whatever is outside has all the patience in the world. The estate's architecture creates a maze of hallways and staircases that twist through the building like the inside of a labyrinth. Rooms sit at odd angles. Doorways do not align correctly with the hall beyond them. Mirrors hang in places that reflect corners no one can reach. Some visitors say they see frost form on the glass in the shape of handprints, as though someone stood there long enough for the surface to freeze. The prints fade slowly, not melting, but retreating back into the mirror as if they were never there. The bedrooms retain old furniture from the years when the estate was inhabited. Wooden dressers, heavy bed frames, and oil lamps rest where they always have. The blankets folded on the beds feel stiff, like the cold has settled into the fabric. Some who sleep there wake up to find the blankets pulled tight around them, tucked in so snugly that they cannot move their arms. Others wake to find the blankets folded at the foot of the bed, as though someone had stood over them and removed the covers during the night. In the parlor, a grand hearth takes up nearly an entire wall. The stone is cracked from years of heat and frost fighting each other. Some swear that when they place a flame inside, the fire burns low and blue, as if struggling for oxygen. A cold around it remains untouched. Sometimes the windows fog heavily, and in the condensation, shapes appear. Lines like faces. The impressions always look as if they are standing outside, staring in. There is a library on the second floor, with shelves that rise to the ceiling. Books line them in perfect rows, but each time someone tries to remove one, a thin layer of frost binds the pages together. The temperature in this room is the coldest of all, dropping low enough that visitors have seen ice form along the edges of the books. Some say they hear whispers here, muffled and distant, as if conversations once spoken in this room have never finished. The sound drifts across the shelves, never loud enough to understand, but always present. The basement of Winterhold Estate is where the cold becomes something else entirely. The stairs leading down are slick, and a faint mist rises from below. The walls drip with condensation, and the air feels heavy, like stepping into a place buried beneath the ocean. The basement pools with shallow water that never freezes and never warms. Anyone who goes down describes the strange sensation of being watched. Not by one presence, but by many. Like a room full of unseen figures waiting for someone to speak first. The estate has been inspected multiple times. Heating systems have been replaced. Drafts have been sealed. Yet nothing changes. The cold rebuilds itself, as if it is not a condition, but a function of the house, a heartbeat that beats slowly through the walls. Locals do not approach the property after dark. They say the windows glow faintly in the night, as though moonlight is shining through curtains that do not exist. Some have walked the wooded path nearby and heard footsteps on the gravel beside them, matching their pace perfectly. When they stop, the sound stops. When they walk, it begins again. Winterhold Estate remains as it always has been. Cold. Breath fogging in the air. Frost spreading like veins along the walls. Footsteps pacing outside bedroom doors. Doorknobs trembling as if something is waiting to be let inside. It stands in silence, overlooking the sea. A place where even summer cannot find warmth. A place where the cold feels alive. Ironcrest House stands on the border of a quiet North Carolina town, where the tree line grows dense and the wind carries a metallic echo through the branches. The mansion rises from the ground like a forge-hammered monument, its structure dark and weathered, its windows reflecting light like polished steel. To look at it from a distance is to feel a subtle pressure in the air, as though something inside is awake and listening. Visitors describe the same first impression when they cross the threshold. The air is thick. Not dusty like most abandoned places, but heavy with the faint smell of iron and smoke. The scent lingers in every hallway, clinging to the baseboards and drifting through vents that no longer connect to anything. It feels like stepping inside a workshop that was left in use only moments ago, though not a single tool can be found. Then the sounds begin. Clanging in the distance. The echo of a hammer against metal. A slow scraping along the walls, like steel dragged across stone. The noises travel through the mansion with a rhythm that is never random. They rise and fall like the steady pattern of someone working, shaping, forging. And yet, when the sound is followed, it always moves ahead. Never behind. Always around the next corner. Always out of reach. Some rooms feel strangely warm, as if heat radiates from the walls. Not enough to burn, but enough to make fingertips recoil. The warmth pulses, like the stone and plaster are not stone and plaster at all, but steel cooling after being pulled from flame. Like a heartbeat or the strike of a hammer deep within the structure. Ironcrest House was built in the early 1800s by a blacksmith named Elias Grieve. Records describe him as a quiet man, highly skilled, respected by his peers, but distant from his community. He constructed the mansion himself, piece by piece, forging his own nails, hinges, and beams. He treated the house as he would a piece of metal, shaping it until it matched an image only he understood. When the mansion was complete, he closed his workshop to the public and rarely left the property again. What happened next is uncertain. Some say Elias became consumed with new techniques, seeking to craft metal that responded like living sinew. Others believe he tried to create something that could not rust or break, something beyond the limitations of ordinary iron. Whatever the truth was, neighbors reported strange sounds from the house. Sparks flashing through the windows at night. Hammer blows ringing out long after midnight. Then one day, the sound stopped, and Elias Grieve was never seen again. The mansion stood silent for years, until people began to explore. The first groups came out of curiosity. They left quickly, claiming the interior made them feel unsteady, like the floor vibrated beneath their shoes. Others stayed longer, only to flee when the metallic sounds began. They described hammer strikes echoing from the hallways. And always, the scraping of metal against metal, like something being sharpened in the dark. One visitor ventured into the basement. And returned changed. He spoke of a workbench fused to the floor. Slag scattered across the stone as though someone had been forging metal only seconds before. He swore the furnace was warm to the touch. Though there was no fire inside. No fuel and no chimney above it. He said the air around the furnace hummed like a tuning fork. Like it recognized him. He left North Carolina and never returned. Some believe Elias Grieve never stopped working. They say his presence has become part of the mansion, woven into the structure itself. The rooms that hum. The metallic sounds that echo across the floors. As though he is still crafting something that cannot be seen, shaping iron that exists beyond human sight. Others claim the house has changed over time. Nails appear where none were before. Hinges repair themselves. Doors that once sagged now stand straight and balanced. As if the mansion maintains itself, piece by piece, through unseen hands. There are those who hear more than sounds. They report whispers carried through the vents, low and muffled like a voice speaking through layers of metal. They cannot understand the words, but the tone feels instructive, almost patient, like someone teaching a craft from the other side of a wall. A few have described the sensation of being watched not by eyes, but by the structure itself. As though the house is examining them, measuring their worth. Some decide to leave before nightfall. Others stay to discover what happens after dark. At night, the metallic sounds grow louder. The clanging becomes sharper, the scraping more urgent. The walls warm until the air ripples. Sparks, faint but visible, drift through the hallways, vanishing before they touch the floor. The furnace hums like a heartbeat. The vibrations spread through the house, shaking the windows in their frames. And somewhere in the dark, the hammer strikes continue. Clang. Pause. Clang. Clang. A slow, deliberate rhythm. Those who flee carry the sound with them for days, hearing it faintly in pipes, in street signs, in the metal of passing cars. They describe the feeling of being followed not by footsteps, but by a presence that exists wherever iron is found. As if Ironcrest House has marked them the way a blacksmith marks steel. Ironcrest still stands today, its windows reflecting the world like the surface of a blade. And when the wind passes through the trees, the branches ring with the echo of hammer blows that have not stopped in more than a century. The sound echoes through the landscape, a haunting reminder of the horrors that lurk in the shadows. Clang. Scrape. Forge. The work continues. The Van Drake mansion sits at the edge of the New Hampshire woods, isolated by distance and reputation. Built in the mid-1800s, it was once a place of elegance and social gatherings. Carriages lined the long gravel drive. Lanterns glowed from the windows. The gardens outside were known for their rare flowers and carefully sculpted hedges. Now, the grounds are silent. The soil is gray like ash. The garden is dead. No birds nest in the branches. No insects move in the grass. Yet every night, something impossible happens. As darkness settles, black flowers bloom across the lifeless garden. Their petals curl open like smoke and shimmer with a faint silver sheen. They do not smell of earth or pollen but of cold air, like stone before winter snow. The petals feel chilled to the touch. Witnesses describe them as cold as ash, as if whatever force animates them does so without warmth. By sunrise, the flowers vanish. There is no wilt, no decay, no sign they were ever there. The soil returns to its dry and barren state. Inside the mansion, the air feels older than the structure itself. Floors creak under the weight of footsteps that do not belong to the living. The wallpaper has peeled back to reveal ornate designs hidden beneath layers of paint. The chandeliers sway even when the air is still, their crystals catching glints of light from unseen sources. Guests who enter often say the house feels awake, as if it listens. The most common account is of a woman who wanders the halls at night. She is always seen holding a candle. Her dress appears outdated by more than a century. Some describe lace and trailing fabric. Others recall intricate embroidery. Others recall the sound of her footsteps being barely audible. She never speaks. She never reaches for anyone. She simply moves, as if searching for a room that no longer exists. The flame of her candle burns steadily, casting shadows that stretch farther than they should. The shadows seem to writhe and twist, as if alive. The woman's face is a mask of determination, her eyes fixed on some distant point. The candle's flame casts an otherworldly glow on the walls. She simply moves, as if searching for a room that no longer exists. The shadows seem to writhe and twist, as if alive. The woman's face is a mask of determination, her eyes fixed on some distant point. The candle's flame casts an otherworldly glow on the walls. She simply moves, as if searching for a room that no longer exists. The shadows seem to writhe and twist, as if alive. The woman's face is a mask of determination, her eyes fixed on some distant point. The candle's flame casts an otherworldly glow on the walls. Most encounters are brief and without incident. People see her from the end of a hallway or reflected in a mirror. She does not always acknowledge them. But there is a rule every story agrees on. If she looks at you, the flame changes. The moment the flame turns blue, fear seizes the body like a warning. Those who have experienced it describe the temperature dropping instantly. Breath turning visible. A pressure forming in the chest as if the house itself has drawn closer. The stories all end with the same advice. When the flame turns blue, run. The origin of the woman is unclear, though rumors gather like dust in the corners of the estate. Some say she was the lady of the house, a woman named Seraphine Vandrake, devoted to her home and gardens. Others claim she was a hired caretaker who stayed after the family vanished without explanation. A few believe she was never part of the household at all but arrived with the Mansiona's misfortune. There are no official records explaining her identity, only fragmented letters and unsigned entries in old ledgers that mention a woman who refused to leave. Only fragmented letters and unsigned entries in old ledgers that mention a woman who refused to leave. In the library, where books sag on their shelves and ink stains mark the desks. Drafts of cold air move without a source. The candle flame, when brought into the room, flickers violently as if pushed by invisible hands. Some visitors have reported hearing soft footsteps behind them, though no one is there. Others feel the sensation of being watched from between the shelves. The mirrors in the mansion show reflections that lag a moment behind reality, as if the house needs more time to respond. The grand stairway is another place where the woman appears. People climbing or descending describe seeing her on the landing, unmoving, her candle held close. The flame lights her face only partially, the rest hidden by shadow. If she turns her head to follow Sumania's movement, the flame shifts toward blue. No one has stayed to watch what happens next. They flee down the stairs, through the corridors, out the front doors, into the night. Where the black flowers bloom and the wind pushes them toward the road. Even outside, the presence of the mansion lingers. The night air carries a cold scent that does not belong to the forest. And sometimes, just before dawn, the woman can be seen through the glass, moving from room to room, the candle illuminating her path. The flame remains gold during these moments, as if she has no reason to notice anyone beyond the walls. There are theories about the blue flame. Some believe it is a warning. Others think it is a sign that the mansion has recognized the visitor. A few whisper that the blue flame means the boundary between this world and whatever binds the mansion together has thinned. That the woman's gaze marks someone the house intends to keep. The Vandrake mansion continues to stand, untouched by restoration and avoided by those who know its history. The garden remains dead by day. And alive by night. The black petals bloom and disappear. The halls remain restless. And the woman with the candle keeps walking. Always searching. Always waiting. If the candle burns gold, she will pass like a shadow in the distance. If the flame turns blue, run. Redgate House stands on a quiet stretch of land in Tennessee. Surrounded by fields that once trembled beneath the weight of marching armies. The soil remembers. The wind carries echoes. And the mansion, built decades after the battles ended, seems to absorb the past into its walls. Generations have passed, yet the house remains vigilant. Like a sentry standing guard over a war that ended long ago but never truly left. The front porch faces the old fields where cannons once thundered. At night, visitors say they hear footsteps crunching through grass that should be silent. Boots striking the ground in rhythm. A march with no living soldiers to lead it. The sound grows louder near the house, as if an unseen formation approaches the porch in formation, row upon row. Inside, the house is grand but worn. The wallpaper is faded. The floors scarred with age. And the chandeliers collect dust like memories. Redgate House was built near the site of old battlefields. And even though the walls were raised after the conflict, the energy of those days seeped upward from the ground. In empty corridors, shouted orders echo as if carried from another time. The voice is muffled but urgent. Not angry. Not panicked. Commanding. Drums pound in rooms where no instruments exist. The rhythm is tight and steady, a cadence that would once have signaled troops to move. It rolls through the hallways, rattling picture frames and stirring curtains that should not move. The sound fades before anyone can reach its source. Then, in the moments of stillness that follow, the silence feels unnatural. Expectant. Like a breath being held. Some nights, the windows fill with silhouettes of marching soldiers. They appear against the glass, moving in formation, their outlines holding shape like shadows cast by lantern light. Some silhouettes turn their heads, as if acknowledging someone inside. Others raise rifles. Then, as the line passes, a few shapes break away and move toward the doorway. Some enter the house. They do not slam doors or leave footprints. They cross the threshold without sound. The temperature drops as they pass, and a draft pushes through the hallways like a current of cold air. The footsteps begin again, closer this time. Heavy. Determined. They travel down the corridor as though the soldiers know exactly where they are going. In the parlor, portraits of past residents hang on the walls. The ancestors who lived here would have known the battlefields well. Some tended to wounded soldiers. Others defended the property when troops marched too close. There are stories of an officer who once sought refuge within these walls. His presence is still felt. The floorboards where he paced remain indented, warped by weight that has not touched them in centuries. A document discovered in the attic described strange events during the earliest years of the house. It spoke of lamps flickering in perfect rhythm, as though timed to a marching cadence. It told of a dinner interrupted by the sound of a regiment moving past the windows, though nothing could be seen outside. The final page mentioned a figure standing in the foyer, looking toward the stairway. The author wrote of feeling watched by a gaze that held both sorrow and duty. The second floor contains rooms with furniture covered in dust sheets. The cloth rises and falls, almost imperceptibly, as though breathing. People who walk the upper hallway hear boots striking the floor behind them. Not running. Not chasing. Marching. When they turn, the sound stops, leaving only silence. A guest once described hearing a voice behind a door at the end of the hall. The speech was quiet, fragmented, as if reciting orders long forgotten. They leaned closer and heard a phrase repeated in a tone filled with resolve. Then the door handle rattled, not violently, but like someone trying to open it with fading strength. When the guest fled, they reported feeling compelled to look back. They refused. They left before sunrise and never returned. The basement holds the oldest parts of Redgate House. Stone walls and earthen floors, lined with wooden crates and rusted nails. Down there, the echoes are strongest. Something moves in the dark as though assembling for inspection. People come back upstairs pale and shaken, unable to speak about what they heard. Outside, the fields still hold the scars of history. Grass grows uneven in places, as if the land remembers where trenches lay. On windy nights, flags seem to snap in the air though no flagpoles stand. The scent of gunpowder drifts across the property with no fire to blame. The past is not gone here. It loops like a memory replaying without end. Yet Redgate House is not violent. Not vengeful. It feels like a place caught between duty and rest. The drumbeats return. Slow at first, then building into a steady cadence. The walls seem to tense. The chandeliers tremble. The windows darken with silhouettes. Some turn. Some raise rifles. Some enter the house. Then the footsteps fade, and the silence settles again. The fields outside whisper with wind that sounds like breath. And the memories of battles long concluded march on, unseen but never absent. The past continues forward, step by step, refusing to be forgotten. Featherow Manor stands on a patch of windswept land in rural Vermont, where the trees bend inward as though trying to hide the house from the world. The sky above remains strangely empty. Not a single bird crosses the airspace. No flutter of wings. No distant call. Even in spring, when the forests should be alive with sound, the manor exists in a bubble of silence. The property is surrounded by fields where birds will not land. Travelers have watched flocks approach, only to veer away at the last moment, breaking formation to avoid passing overhead. It is as if they sense something beneath the soil or inside the walls that warns them to keep their distance. Nature does not trespass here. Featherow Manor was built in the late 1800s by a family known for their fascination with aviary research. Their journals described the property as chosen for its seclusion and ideal climate for breeding rare birds. Early records mention dozens of species being kept on the grounds, from delicate songbirds to towering birds of prey. The estate once echoed with calls from every winged creature imaginable. But no one hears birds at Featherow Manor anymore. Stepping inside, the silence deepens. The foyer feels thick, like sound is being absorbed by the walls instead of echoing. The wallpaper is faded, almost peeling, with patterns that resemble wings in flight. The floors are dusted not with dirt, but with feathers. White. Black. Gray. They drift from the rafters above, floating down as though shed from something unseen. Yet there are no birds inside the house. Visitors explore room by room, expecting to discover nests or broken perches, but find only emptiness. Chambers that once held cages are stripped bare. Hooks line the ceilings where enclosures once hung, now rocking gently as though disturbed by a breeze that no one can feel. Feathers cling to the corners of the walls like cobwebs. Some report hearing a distant flutter in the hallways. Not loud. Just faint enough to make the mind question what it heard. The sound never repeats when searched for directly. It hides behind corners just out of reach, like something playing with distance. The library contains shelves of handwritten journals, their pages filled with careful observations. The final entries speak of a bird larger than any natural species, a creature described with reverence and fear. The writers noted that it was not brought to the estate. It arrived. It watched the family from the fields. And when they opened the doors to lure it inside, it stepped across the threshold and everything changed. No trace of it exists now except in those fading words. On the second floor, long hallways stretch into darkness, narrow and strangely cold. Feathers coat the steps leading upward, arranged almost deliberately, forming patterns like migration paths. Some resemble wings. Others resemble eyes. Standing at the top of the stairs, visitors feel the sensation of something passing overhead. A rush of air without a sound. A shape that cannot be seen, but can be felt in the shift of pressure. Rooms here behave strangely. Windows that face open fields show skies without movement. At night, they show something else. Not stars. Not the moon. Just a surface of shifting gray, like feathers pressed against the glass from the other side. Some claim to see impressions of wings stretching outward, as though brushing against the window in slow movements. In one chamber sits a large brass perch, polished smooth by use long ago. Around it, the floor is covered in feathers. They are not aged or brittle. They are fresh. As if something still uses the perch, though no creature stands upon it. The air smells faintly of old straw and earth. The silence hums. The attic is the heart of the menorah's mystery. A narrow ladder leads upward, and each rung feels colder than the last. The door at the top opens with effort, as though something behind it resists. The door at the top opens with effort, as though something behind it resists. Inside, the attic is vast and strangely bright. Inside, the attic is vast and strangely bright. Feathers float constantly, drifting from beams and rafters, though nothing is perched there. Feathers float constantly, drifting from beams and rafters, though nothing is perched there. The walls are lined with empty cages, hanging open as if they were all released at once. Those who have stepped into the attic describe the sensation of being surrounded. Not by a crowd, but by presence. A windless motion that circles the room, moving with the purpose of an animal that has territory to protect. Sometimes the feathers rise in the air, swirling like a miniature storm. Then they fall again, without explanation. There is a legend surrounding Feather Manor. It claims that the family attempted to create a sanctuary so perfect that even unnatural birds would come. They believed wings were not meant for Earth, but for something beyond it. They tried to bridge that gap. And whatever answered them did not leave. A space reserved. As though something claims that air as its own. Visitors who leave the house often find a single feather tucked into their clothing. Always different in color. Always pristine. Some keep it as a curiosity. Others discard it immediately. But those who return to the property say that on their second visit, the house feels different. The silence feels watchful. The rooms feel aware. The drifting feathers seem to fall in their path, as though marking their presence. No birds live at Feather Manor. Not anymore. Whatever once shared the house with them left with no trace. Or perhaps it remains, unseen, occupying the empty rafters and silent spaces. The manor breathes quietly, in its own way. The sky stays clear of wings. The fields stay untouched. And the feathers continue to fall inside its halls, like memories that refuse to settle. Feather Manor waits, beneath the silent Vermont sky, for whoever is willing to step inside and listen to what the quiet is trying to say. Grimwell Colonial Estate rests deep in the Kentucky countryside, surrounded by fields that have grown wild with time. The house is built of weathered brick, its windows long faded from decades of storms and neglect. The land feels old in a way that has nothing to do with age. The soil carries a memory. The wind moves as if it is searching for something. And at the center of the courtyard stands a well. Its stones are cracked. The water inside is so dark that it reflects nothing, not even the sky above. Local accounts say the estate was built in the early days of settlement. Families seeking opportunity carved homes from the landscape, and Grimwell became one of the first structures to rise. The earliest records speak of hardships. Disappearances. Conflicts with neighboring groups. The well was dug to support the estate, but rumors say it became something else. Some say people were thrown in. Others say they jumped. Some believe the well was used to hide mistakes that no one wanted discovered. Whatever happened, the stories agree on one detail. The darkness at the bottom of the well has never changed. Visitors describe a feeling that begins the moment they step onto the property. The trees stand unusually still. Birds avoid the branches. Even the breeze shifts direction before crossing the courtyard. The estate holds on to silence the way other places hold on to sunlight. The house, the grounds, and especially the well seem to wait. During the day, the well is unsettling but quiet. The water never ripples. Not from wind. Not from falling leaves. It sits like a black mirror. Some claim they have seen shapes beneath the surface, like hands rising and pulling back before breaking through. No one has confirmed it. No one has stayed close enough to know for sure. Night at Grimwell Estate is different. When the last light fades behind the hills, something changes in the air. The courtyard grows colder. Like fingertips brushing the inner stone walls. Starts from deep below, echoing upward in uneven intervals. The sound becomes clearer as it rises. Not metal. Not branches. Trying to climb. The scraping echoes up through the stone like someone is attempting to pull themselves toward the surface. The rhythm is uneven, as if whoever or whatever is below keeps losing their grip. Some nights the sound stops suddenly, leaving the courtyard in complete silence. Other nights it continues for hours without pause. Witnesses have reported hearing a voice follow the scraping. It does not shout. It does not whisper. It speaks in a tired, strained tone, as though it has been calling out for years. The voice does not rise from the well like a human voice would. It seems to vibrate through the courtyard floor, brushing the edges of hearing. Help me climb out. Please. Even without punctuation or emphasis, the words linger in the mind. Those who have heard them say the voice sounds neither angry nor threatening. Only desperate. As if the person speaking is exhausted and waiting for someone to answer. Inside the house, the rooms remain staged as if the last occupants left in a hurry. A dining room table sits beneath a chandelier that tilts slightly to one side. A desk in the study still holds quill pens, their ink long dried. The floors creak beneath footsteps even when no one is walking. Doors stand half open, never fully closing no matter how hard they are pushed. Some investigators who toured the estate described hearing water drip inside the house. Slow and steady, like a leak in the walls. But when they searched for the source, the floors were dry. The walls were untouched. The only place water pooled was near the back door that leads to the well, as if something had walked inside and brought the wetness with it. The basement sits beneath the oldest part of the estate. The bricks are older than the rest of the structure, and the air smells like stone dust and moisture. The sound of dripping water echoes here too, louder than above, as though the walls are remembering something. The air vibrates with the faint scraping that rises through the stones. Visitors claim that standing in the basement feels like standing beneath the well itself. The air vibrates with the faint scraping that rises through the stones. The air vibrates with the faint scraping that rises through the stones. Attempts to seal the well have failed. Wooden lids rot. Metal covers rust through. Concrete poured over the opening cracks within weeks. Cracks within weeks. No explanation has held. Some say the earth rejects the effort. Others believe the well was never meant to be closed. It remains open, waiting. The water reflecting nothing. Locals avoid the estate. They cross to the other side of the road when passing, refusing to look toward the courtyard. Some believe the well calls for attention. That it wants someone to lean close enough to see what lies beneath. A few claim that if you stare long enough, the darkness stares back. Today, Grimwell Colonial Estate sits untouched, suspended between history and memory. The courtyard is still. The well remains open. The water waits without moving. And when night falls, the scraping begins again. Nails against stone. A voice rising through the dark. Help me climb out. Please. The words drift up into the air, unanswered and unresolved, as though the past is still trying to return to the surface. Lancaster Hall stands on the outskirts of Massachusetts, framed by skeletal trees that bend toward the estate as if drawn by memory. The mansion is enormous, built of dark brick and pale stone, an architectural marvel from another time. Even before someone enters, the building feels wrong in a way that cannot be named. The windows reflect the world backward, as if the glass remembers a different version of reality. Travelers who approach describe the sensation of stepping into a place that does not want to be understood. Inside, the air is still, heavy with age, but clean in a way that suggests the hall has not been abandoned at all. The echo of each footstep is stretched, as though the sound takes longer to die than it should. At the base of the main chamber stand the two staircases. They rise side by side in perfect symmetry, spiraling upward like mirrored strands of a helix. To look at them is to feel a pull, an indecision that makes visitors hesitate without knowing why. At first glance, there is no difference between them. The same railings, the same polished wood, the same number of steps, the same gentle curve into the upper dark. But only one of these staircases leads to the second floor. The other leads somewhere else. Those who choose correctly reach the landing above. The halls extend outward as normal. Doorways open into rooms that feel strange but navigable. But those who choose the wrong staircase begin a journey that they cannot predict or control. They climb, and instead of reaching the next floor, they return to the beginning. Another loop. Another passage that leads nowhere. Another set of steps that promise progress but deliver only return. It does not happen quickly. The staircase disguises the loop. The rail under their hand feels slightly warmer or cooler than before. The portraits at the landing seem to have shifted, their eyes tracking movement that the observer does not remember. The air feels lighter or heavier. The house shifts in small increments until the traveler realizes they have walked far longer than the building should allow. Some say the staircase changes its length. Others insist that the halls attached to it bend in angles that should not exist. One visitor claimed that the rail curved beneath their fingers like something breathing. They kept climbing, convinced the exit was just ahead. Minutes passed. Then hours. By the time they found themselves back at the bottom, the foyer looked different. The portraits had new faces. The shadows were longer than before. People who emerge from the wrong staircase are not the same as when they entered. Their voices echo oddly, as if someone else is speaking along with them a fraction of a second out of sync. Their eyes reflect the light in strange ways, as though the pupils have stretched or thinned. They look out windows longer than necessary, seeing something no one else can see. Some refuse to speak at all, terrified that the echo in their voice will answer back. Those who attempt to question them notice the same unsettling behavior. They flinch at hallways. They avoid stairs entirely. They stand at doorways as if waiting for permission from a presence no one else perceives. They have seen something in the staircase, something that did not let them leave untouched. There are rumors of what waits on the looping route. Some say the halls beyond the staircase open into rooms that should not exist. An endless dining room with plates set for guests who will never arrive. A library where all the books contain only the same page, repeated forever. A music room where a piano plays without sound, the keys sinking and rising like silent breathing. Others speak of figures that follow close behind. Not hostile. Not welcoming. Simply present. Footsteps that match your pace. Breathing that seems to wait for you to stop walking. A hand on the rail beside yours, not touching, but near enough to feel the heat of something that does not cast a shadow. The most unsettling accounts come from those who say they reached a landing at last. A place at the top of the stair where a door waits. The door appears simple and old, red paint flaking from its surface. The doorknob is polished, as though many hands have touched it. Those who stand before that door feel a pressure in the chest, a warning not to open it. Some turn back. Others do not speak of what happened next. A few visitors have returned from the staircase changed so profoundly that they no longer respond to the world in the same way. Their voices echo even when they whisper. Their footsteps fall out of rhythm with their movement. Their reflections in mirrors hesitate, delayed by a moment that stretches too long. When they close their eyes, they say the staircase is still beneath their feet. The loop never ended. They are always walking in both places at once. Local historians claim Lancaster Hall was designed by an architect who believed symmetry had spiritual power. They say the twin staircases were meant to be identical gateways. One physical and one conceptual, touching the boundaries of perception. He vanished before the building was completed. His final journal entry ends abruptly, mid-sentence, as though his attention was pulled away. No one knows which staircase he took, or if he ever reached the landing above. Lancaster Hall remains standing today. Those who open its doors find the same mirrored staircases rising like a choice that should not be made lightly. Most people take the left, believing instinct will guide them. Others take the right, convinced curiosity is worth the risk. Some never choose at all. They stare upward and understand the truth. The danger was never in climbing. The danger was in deciding. The staircase waits. The loop begins. And those who return are not alone. The final colonial mansion is not pinned to any map. Travelers do not seek it, yet somehow they arrive. It has no fixed location. Those who have seen it insist the mansion appears only to certain people, at certain moments, when distance and direction lose their meaning. Roads do not lead to it. Paths do not guide the way. Instead, the world seems to shift, and suddenly the traveler stands before a structure that should not exist. It resembles a colonial mansion from centuries past, but the design is wrong in ways that are difficult to articulate. The building stretches wider than it should. The roof dips and rises like breathing lungs. There are no windows anywhere on its exterior. Only doors. Row after row of identical doors, lining the walls like repeating patterns in an impossible equation. The doors vary slightly in size and placement, yet each one feels deliberate, like a choice waiting to be made. Some say the mansion selects its visitors. Those who carry unresolved memories. Those at crossroads in their lives. Those who feel pursued by something they cannot name. When these people step off the road to adjust their belongings or rest, the world around them changes. Then the mansion is there. Approaching the entrance feels like being pulled by unseen gravity. The door opens without a touch. Inside, the air is still, without scent or temperature. The mansion is not abandoned, but neither is it inhabited by anything familiar. The walls are lined with more doors, forming corridors that stretch farther than the building appears from outside. Those who step fully inside discover the rules with unsettling clarity. No door leads outside. Opening a door at random does not return a traveler to the world they came from. Instead, each door offers a destination both unreal and eerily purposeful. Some lead to rooms filled with whispering shadows. Shapes move across the walls like silhouettes cast by candles, though no light source exists. The whispers do not form words, yet the meaning is felt rather than heard. A feeling of warning. A feeling of memory. A feeling of being examined. Other doors open to staircases that descend without end. The stairs spiral downward, deeper and deeper, like a path into the earth or into another idea of reality. The descent feels endless, but those who turn back find that the staircase has changed behind them. Steps that once led up now stretch down again. Returning is not a guarantee. There are rooms of impossible geometry, where furniture faces corners that should not be there, and hallways shift direction as if the mansion is rearranging itself. Sometimes visitors encounter rooms with mirrors, and the reflections lag behind reality. A reflection may continue to walk after the person has stopped. It may turn its head slowly to face the viewer, even if the real body has not moved. Travelers have reported hearing footsteps in the halls. Not behind them, not ahead, but beside them, aligning perfectly with their own stride. The sensation is not of being followed, as if the mansion is learning how to walk like them. There is one door that leads back to the world. That is the final truth everyone agrees on. The exit exists. It is not a myth or a rumor. Those who return confirm it. But each insists the door is never the same. It may appear at the end of a hallway or behind a staircase, or hidden in plain sight. Finding it requires more than exploration. It requires intuition, or luck, or something the mansion recognizes as readiness. Choosing the wrong door means never returning. It is not an act of punishment but consequence. The mansion does not harm. Those who vanish inside do not leave traces behind. Their voices sometimes echo through the halls. Their footsteps occasionally join those of newcomers. They are still there, somewhere, behind the doors that should have been avoided. A consistent detail stands out from the stories of those who survived. The mansion tests intention. If a person enters with desperation, fear guides their choices. If a person enters with anger, the doors reflect confusion. The only successful escapees describe moments of calm clarity, as if they understood something before choosing the exit. They describe a door that feels different, warmer or quieter or more present. They open it, step through, and find themselves back on the road, the sky above them unchanged. When they turn around, the mansion is gone. The final colonial mansion remains a paradox that cannot be studied or mapped. Scholars have attempted to trace the accounts and identify patterns. None have succeeded. Travelers who speak of it often share the same final observation. The mansion never feels abandoned. It feels aware. Some believe the mansion is a place between worlds, a crossroads of fate where choices carry weight beyond the moment. Others think it is a test of the self, where doors represent futures not yet chosen. A few insist it is older than colonial history, older than human settlement, older than the idea of location itself. What remains certain is this: the mansion appears only when it chooses to. It shows doors instead of windows, offering choices rather than answers. Somewhere inside, a door leads home. The others lead elsewhere. If it ever finds you, step carefully. My dear friend, thank you for walking with me through these halls of the past. Colonial America built homes with pride, brick, wood, and stonia. But it also built graves, secrets, and sorrow. And those things do not fade. They cling, they linger, they wait. If you ever stand before one of these mansions, take a moment. Listen to the silence. Feel the air. Watch the windows. If the curtains move when there is no wind, if footsteps echo in an empty hall, if a cold breath curls against the back of your neck, leave. The past is reaching for you. Tell me, would you dare spend one night in a colonial mansion, alone, in the dark, or would you escape before the door closes behind you? Rest now. Until our next haunted journey.